That was a third-class maneuver, Navigator.
Well, if that was a third...
The flight of the Navigator remains one of the most memorable science fiction adventures of its time. It told the unusual story of a young boy who disappeared, returned 8 years later without aging, and became the unlikely pilot of an alien craft. Behind this strange and captivating plot lie moments that shaped the film into the cult classic it is today. Here are 20 little-known facts that reveal how this unique film was created and why it fascinates audiences. Number 1. The spaceship. The spaceship from Flight of the Navigator did not vanish after filming ended. It was relocated to Florida and became part of the Disney's Hollywood Studios theme park at Walt Disney World. The craft was displayed on the Backlot Tour, an attraction that showcased sets, vehicles, and props from various productions. The ship was placed in an area known as the Boneyard. This section of the tour featured retired items once used in movies. Guests rode past on trams and saw the silver vessel sitting among other recognizable pieces of film history. Though it was no longer in use, it remained a striking object. Its polished curves and futuristic design reminded many of the story that had made it famous. The Backlot Tour was designed to reveal the process of film creation. Visitors could see cars, aircraft, and other equipment from past productions. The Flight of the Navigator ship became one of the highlights, especially for those who remembered the film. Families often identified it quickly, and the tour guide would point out its place in movie history. Over time, the Florida climate left marks on the craft, yet it continued to draw attention. It was a rare chance for fans to view a practical prop rather than a model or special effect. For several years, the ship remained a part of the attraction, linking a popular film with the theme park experience. When the Backlot Tour closed, the display was removed. The ship was taken out of public view, leaving only photographs and memories from the period when it was stored in the Disney Boneyard. Number 2. The prop that now serves another purpose. One of the original prop hulls from Flight of the Navigator started serving another purpose. After the film and its time on display in Florida, the silver craft was taken apart. Instead of being kept as a full ship, one of its hull sections was reused inside the park. That piece was carefully refurbished and given a new role. Today, it can be found in Tomorrowland at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. The hull is now fixed above a refreshment stand. Guests stopping for drinks in the futuristic-themed land often notice the strange, curved topper without knowing where it came from. To them, it appears to be part of the science fiction design of Tomorrowland. Only fans of the movie or those who know its history recognize that the shiny structure above the stand once belonged to the spaceship flown by a boy in the 1980s film. The reuse of props was not unusual for Disney. The company often recycled items from productions to create themed attractions. This approach gave old materials a second life while saving costs. The Navigator hull fitted perfectly into Tomorrowland's atmosphere of rockets and space-age ideas. Its smooth metallic surface matched the setting, even if most people no longer connected it with the movie. For those aware of its background, the hull's placement in Magic Kingdom represents a hidden link to cinema history. Instead of being stored away or destroyed, part of the ship survives in plain sight. Visitors walk past it every day, unaware that they are looking at a relic from a cult science fiction film. This quiet survival ensures that the spaceship's story continues, even if many no longer recognize its true origin. Number 3. The mystery voice. In Flight of the Navigator, the voice of the spaceship's artificial intelligence, known as Max, became one of the most memorable parts of the film. The character was brought to life by Paul Reubens, who was already famous for creating and performing as Pee Wee Herman. Rather than place his name in the credits, Reubens suggested something different. He wanted the identity of the voice actor to remain a mystery. His idea was to use a false name, and so the credits listed Paul Mall instead of his real name. The choice was unusual for a major studio release. At the time, audiences had little way of quickly searching for the truth. This meant that many people left the theater wondering who had provided the strange yet funny voice of the ship. Some fans thought it was a professional comedian, while others believed it was an unknown actor hired only for this role. The secret added an extra layer of intrigue to the film. Reubens himself enjoyed playing with audience expectations. He was known for creating characters that blurred the line between performer and performance, Using a pseudonym in Flight of the Navigator fits with that playful style. Only later did it become widely known that he had been behind Max's voice all along. The credit as Paul Mall remains a curious detail in the film. It demonstrated how even a small creative decision could alter how audiences perceived a movie. For many fans, discovering that the same man behind Pee Wee Herman had voiced the spaceship made the film even more memorable. It remains one of the lesser-known but fascinating facts tied to the production. Number 4. A director's idea. Director Randall Kleiser wanted the spaceship in Flight of the Navigator to look unlike anything audiences had seen before. To achieve this, he brought in his brother Jeff Kleiser as the visual effects supervisor. Jeff was already working with advanced computer graphics, and his knowledge helped shape one of the most striking parts of the film. He used a technique known as reflection mapping, a process that allowed the ship to appear as if its surface was made of smooth chrome. This effect gave the craft its liquid-like shine, reflecting the world around it as it moved. At the time, such an effect was far from common. The mid-1980s marked the early years of computer-generated imagery in film. Many productions still relied on models, matte paintings, or traditional animation. The decision to use reflection mapping made Flight of the Navigator stand out from other science fiction releases of that period. It gave the ship a futuristic look that practical props alone could not achieve. The results are now viewed as one of the earliest successful examples of computer-generated imagery in mainstream cinema. This was completed in 1986, a full 5 years before James Cameron's Terminator 2. Judgment Day introduced the T-1000, a character that many believe marked the breakthrough moment for CGI. Although the film did not reach the same level of fame as later blockbusters, its technical achievements remain significant. The chrome-like spaceship helped pave the way for future effects, showing filmmakers what was possible when computers were used creatively. Number 5. The mystery behind the belch. The film Flight of the Navigator included many small details that added humor and character to the story. One such detail comes from a scene involving the alien creature known as the Garpuntal. This creature snatches and swallows David's NASA hat in one quick motion, followed by a loud belch. Rather than create the sound through traditional effects, the filmmakers chose an unusual method. The belch was provided by Joey Kramer, the young actor who played David. During production, Kramer recorded the sound himself. His natural belch was then recorded in the studio, where technicians made slight adjustments to it. By slowing it down, the belch became deeper and longer, giving the small alien creature a funny but believable noise. The result was a comic moment that many viewers remember clearly. The fact that it came directly from the actor gave it an extra connection to the character on screen. Sound design often involves layering effects or borrowing from unexpected sources. In this case, the team kept things simple but creative. Instead of relying on stock noises or artificial recordings, they used something genuine. Kramer's contribution, though small, became part of the finished film in a way most actors never experience. This approach reflects the inventive style of the production. Flight of the Navigator combined advanced effects with playful touches. The Garpuntal's belch was one of those playful touches, reminding audiences that the film was as much about humor as it was about adventure. Even a minor sound effect could be turned into something memorable. For fans who later learned the truth, it became another curious fact about the film's production. Number 6. Disney breaks its own rule. Flight of the Navigator holds an unusual place in Disney history. Released in 1986, it became only the second film under the Disney banner to feature profanity. The company had long been known for its clean family image, with most productions avoiding language that could be considered harsh or offensive. Including even mild profanity marked a shift, showing that Disney was willing to take small risks as it expanded its reach in the 1980s. The first Disney film to include profanity was The Black Hole in 1979. That science fiction release surprised audiences at the time, as the studio had never previously allowed such language in its films. By the time Flight of the Navigator arrived, Disney was experimenting more often, trying to appeal to older children and young teenagers rather than only very young audiences. The film balanced humor, science fiction adventure, and moments of realism, with the use of mild profanity helping to make the dialogue feel natural. Who brought their children to the theater may have been caught off guard, though many accepted it as part of the changing style of family films. The inclusion reflected broader trends in cinema during the decade, when scripts aimed at younger audiences began to incorporate dialogue that sounded more natural and realistic. In the years that followed, Disney continued to experiment with tone and content, often through its Touchstone Pictures label. Yet Flight of the Navigator remains notable as one of the few mainline Disney releases of that period to step outside the company's usual boundaries, blending family-friendly storytelling with a small but historic break from tradition. Number 7. Mistaken Identity. When Flight of the Navigator was released in 1986, its young lead, Joey Kramer, was still largely unknown. He carried the story as David, a boy who disappears and returns years later, unaged. While his performance was praised, many younger audiences who saw the film believed he was someone else. Due to the timing and his similar appearance, Kramer was often mistaken for Henry Thomas, the child star who had gained worldwide fame just a few years earlier in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. That earlier film, released in 1982, had become one of the biggest hits in cinema history. Thomas, who played Elliot, was instantly recognizable to audiences worldwide. Children connected with his role, and his face became a symbol of the emotional heart of the movie. By the time Navigator arrived only 3.5 years later, everyone still remembered Thomas in E.T. Kramer's similar age, and appearance led many viewers to confuse the two actors. The mistake was not surprising. Marketing for Flight of the Navigator focused heavily on its science fiction theme and the boy at the center of the adventure, which naturally evoked comparisons to E.T. Although the two films differed significantly in tone and story, the connection between them in the minds of audiences was strong. Some even left theaters believing they had just watched Henry Thomas in another science fiction role. Over time, the confusion faded as Kramer's real identity became better known. Still, the mix-up remains an interesting detail, showing just how powerful E.T. had been and how strongly its legacy influenced how audiences viewed later films. Number 8. A Paycheck and a Debut. In 2018, Sarah Jessica Parker gave an interview to the AV Club as part of their Random Roles series. When asked about her work in Flight of the Navigator, she showed little memory of the production and admitted she had no particular attachment to it. She played Carolyn McAdams, a NASA intern who helped the young hero during his time in government custody. Yet for Parker, the film was not a milestone in the way audiences might have imagined. She explained her feelings very directly. When asked what had drawn her to the part, she laughed and responded that nothing had drawn her to it at all. She described it simply as a job, saying it was exactly a paycheck. She claimed that back then she took roles as they came without seeking deeper meaning. Flight of the Navigator was one of those jobs. Despite her casual view of the experience, the film does hold significance in her career history. It marked her official feature film debut. Before this, Parker had worked in television and theater, building experience as a young performer. Appearing in a Disney science fiction adventure, even in a supporting role, marked her first appearance on the big screen. When people look back at the movie now, her part feels special because she later became such a big name in Hollywood. At the time, it seemed small, just another early role. In 2018, she even admitted that she did not think much about it and gave it little importance. For her, it was only a step along the way. For audiences, it has become something more. They see it as the very beginning of her story on screen. The difference between how she remembers it and how viewers treasure it makes the story stand out even more. Number 9. Lessons in Physics. In Flight of the Navigator, time travel is a central element of the story. David is taken aboard the alien craft and transported across the galaxy to the planet Phelan. According to Max, the ship's artificial intelligence, the entire journey took only 4.4 solar hours. Yet when David returns to Earth, he discovers that 8 full years have passed. His parents have aged, his younger brother is now older than him, and his home is no longer the same. The difference in time reveals one of the film's most fascinating scientific ideas. For David, time passed normally aboard the ship, but for those on Earth, years had gone by. This concept reflects the principle of time dilation, predicted by Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. If someone travels close to the speed of light, their time slows down compared to that of people who remain stationary. In the movie, David feels only 4.4 hours have passed, but on Earth, 8 full years have passed. Scientists determined that this means his time slowed by approximately 16,000 times. To make this happen, the ship would have needed to move at around 99.9999998% of the speed of light. The film shows it in a fun and dramatic way, yet the science behind it is real. For a family film released in 1986, including a concept grounded in actual science was unusual. It gave the story depth beyond fantasy, linking David's adventure with ideas that continue to shape people's thoughts about space travel. The use of relativity helped the movie stand out, offering younger viewers an early lesson in one of the most complex theories in science. Number 10. The Pixar Elliptic. During one of the lighter moments in Flight of the Navigator, the ship's computer, Max, introduces David to a collection of alien creatures kept on board. As David looks around in amazement, Max identifies them one by one. Among the names he mentions is the Phenosterus, which he says comes from the Pixar Elliptic. At the time, this sounded like a purely made-up phrase, another strange detail in the world of the movie. Yet in hindsight, the mention of the word Pixar carries an unexpected connection to history.
Where did they come from?
Don't touch. That is a garfield from Southern Travels.
Oh.
Only 5 years after the release of Flight of the Navigator in 1986, Disney entered into a partnership with Pixar, then a small computer graphics company. At the time of the film's production, Pixar was still in its early stages, focusing on special effects and computer technology rather than full-length features. The small company that worked on the movie later became one of the biggest names in animation. They went on to make films like Toy Story and Finding Nemo. What started as a small step in film history evolved into a studio that revolutionized the way people viewed animated movies. The coincidence between the film's playful line and Disney's later partnership with Pixar is striking. While there is no direct link between the fictional Pixar Elliptic and the real company, fans often point to it as a curious piece of trivia. It reveals how the movie inadvertently included a word that would become hugely significant to Disney's future. For a film remembered for its early use of computer-generated imagery, the mention of Pixar feels even more fitting. Though unintentional, it foreshadowed the role computer technology would play in shaping the next generation of family entertainment. Number 11. A modest success. Flight of the Navigator was produced on a modest budget by Hollywood standards. The film carried an estimated cost of $9 million, a figure that reflected both the scale of its visual effects and its relatively small cast. For Disney, it was not the kind of high-budget gamble usually associated with blockbuster releases of the mid-1980s. Instead, it was a mid-range project designed to attract family audiences with science fiction, adventure, and humor. At the box office, the film earned $18.5 million. This meant it more than doubled its budget, a respectable result for a movie without major star power. While it was not a runaway smash in the way other science fiction films of the decade were, it still turned a profit and proved that Disney's experiment in mixing advanced effects with a family story could succeed. The numbers also highlight the film's place in cinema history. $9 million in 1986 allowed for a surprising amount of creative experimentation, particularly in the use of computer-generated imagery. The reflection mapping that gave the ship its chrome-like appearance was cutting-edge for its time, and yet the production managed to stay within budget. The return of $18.5 million showed that audiences responded well enough to justify the effort. The movie made back all the money it cost and earned more on top of that. It also introduced new technical ideas that would later be used in films. Disney proved that even films with smaller budgets could still be remembered and make a real impact. Number 12. A New Flight Begins. In September 2021, Disney confirmed that a remake of Flight of the Navigator was moving forward. The project had been discussed several times, but never reached production. This new announcement revealed that Bryce Dallas Howard would direct the film. Known as both an actress and a filmmaker, Howard had gained recognition not only for her acting roles but also for her directing work on episodes of The Mandalorian. Her involvement signaled Disney's intent to bring a fresh vision to the classic story. The updated version aims to reimagine the adventure from a fresh perspective while preserving the core elements of the story. By placing a girl at the center of the narrative, the remake reflects broader Hollywood efforts to diversify storytelling and create stronger roles for female leads. Disney also announced that the remake would be released on Disney+, the company's streaming platform. This choice reflects the modern shift in film distribution, with many high-profile projects premiering directly to streaming audiences rather than theaters. Although no release date has been announced, the confirmation indicates that development is underway. For longtime fans, the news marks the return of a film, remembered for both its humor and its groundbreaking effects. The remake will aim to strike a balance between nostalgia and innovation, introducing the story to a new generation while adapting it for today's audience. Number 13. From Norway to Disney. Although remembered as a Disney release, Flight of the Navigator did not begin as a Disney production. The project was first launched by a Norwegian company called Viking Film. This independent studio began developing the movie to create a science fiction adventure that could appeal to international audiences. Filming went ahead under their control, and much of the early work was carried out without Disney's involvement. However, Viking Film soon encountered serious financial difficulties. In the middle of production, the company was forced to declare bankruptcy. This sudden collapse placed the entire project at risk. Without a distributor or the necessary resources to continue, the movie's future was uncertain. At that point, Disney stepped in and acquired the rights to handle distribution in the United States. Their involvement provided the necessary support to bring the film to completion and ultimately release it to the public. The unusual path from an independent Norwegian company to a major Hollywood studio explains some of the film's unique qualities. It carried the spirit of an international production, yet it was presented to audiences under the Disney banner. Many viewers assumed from the start that it had been developed entirely within Disney, when in truth the project's origins lay far from the traditional studio system. This background also highlights the risks of filmmaking in the 1980s, especially for smaller companies attempting ambitious projects. Without Disney's intervention, Flight of the Navigator might never have reached theaters. Instead, it found its way to audiences and became a cult favorite, though its roots remain tied to Viking Film's brief and troubled history. Number 14. The Norwegian stunt double. Director Randall Kleiser later revealed an unusual detail about the making of Flight of the Navigator. During the scenes where Joey Kramer's character David is shown steering the alien spaceship, a stunt double was often used. The double came from Norway, where part of the film was being shot. The choice made sense for production, but it introduced an unexpected challenge. The Norwegian boy selected for the role did not understand a word of English. This created difficulties on set. Instructions had to be explained through gestures and demonstrations rather than spoken directions. Despite the language barrier, the stunt work was completed successfully, allowing the film to capture the complex shots of David piloting the craft. Audiences watching the final product would never realize that it was not always Kramer in the cockpit. The use of a Norwegian stunt double highlights a larger fact about the movie's production. Roughly one-third of Flight of the Navigator was filmed in Norway. The country provided locations and resources that supported the project during a period when its original backers, Viking Film, were still involved. This explains why so many behind-the-scenes details connect the movie to Norway, even though it was released in the United States under the Disney banner. Shooting across two countries added to the film's unusual history. Few Disney productions of the time relied so heavily on international crews and locations. Yet these choices contributed to the movie's distinct look and feel. The Norwegian influence remains an important, if often overlooked, part of the story of how Flight of the Navigator was brought to life on screen. Number 15. The futuristic soundtrack. Alan Silvestri created the soundtrack of Flight of the Navigator, which would later become one of the most recognizable names in film music. Known for sweeping orchestral scores in films such as Back to the Future and Forrest Gump, Silvestri took a very different approach for this project. Instead of using a traditional orchestra, the entire score was generated electronically. To achieve this, Silvestri relied on the synclavier, one of the earliest digital synthesizers available at the time. The machine could produce a wide range of tones and effects, offering sounds that conventional instruments could not easily create. This allowed the music to match the futuristic style of the film, with pulsing rhythms and shimmering melodies that reflected the sleek design of the alien spacecraft.
Try another station.
The choice of an all-electronic score set Flight of the Navigator, apart from other family adventure films of the mid-1980s. Most productions still used orchestras, even for science fiction stories. By contrast, Silvestri's use of the synclavier gave the soundtrack a modern and experimental quality. It felt directly connected to the technological themes of the story, reinforcing the sense that David's journey involved stepping into a new and unfamiliar world. While some critics at the time considered the music unusual, it has since gained recognition as an important example of electronic scoring in mainstream cinema. The soundtrack demonstrated how new tools could be used to expand the possibilities of film composition. For Silvestri, it marked a bold experiment that added a unique layer to the movie and remains one of the more distinctive works in his long career. Number 16. The Lost Navigator. Joey Kramer was only 13 years old when he took on the lead role of David in Flight of the Navigator. His performance carried the film, and many believed he had a promising career ahead of him. Yet his story followed a path similar to that of many child actors, marked by difficulties after the spotlight faded. By the 1990s, Kramer had stepped away from acting altogether. What had once seemed like the beginning of a long film career ended quietly, leaving him outside the industry while his co-stars and director moved on to new projects. In the years that followed, his name began appearing in the news again, but not for reasons connected to entertainment. From the 2000s onward, Kramer faced several run-ins with the law. His arrests involved charges related to substances, firearms, and forgery. Each incident is evidence of what he faced in adjusting to life away from the world of acting. Instead of being remembered only for his role in a beloved Disney film, his reputation became tied to his criminal record. The most serious case came in 2016, when he was convicted of bank robbery and sentenced to 2 years in prison. The incident shocked many fans who had grown up with Flight of the Navigator and remembered him as the wide-eyed boy at the heart of the story. Kramer's journey is often cited as an example of how early fame can bring challenges once childhood ends. His role in the film remains iconic, yet his personal story serves as a reminder of the difficulties that sometimes follow young actors after the cameras stop rolling. Number 17. The Surprising Link. Flight of the Navigator may appear to be a pure science fiction adventure, yet hidden within it are surprising links to the classic 1978 musical Grease. Both films share the same director, Randall Kleiser, whose career took him from the lively high school halls of Danny and Sandy to the stars and a talking spaceship. This connection between two very different films reveals the extent to which Kleiser's directing talents stretched. The movie is set in the very year that Grease was made, a small detail that acts almost like a tribute to Kleiser's earlier success. For audiences who loved the musical, this link added another layer of fun. They were not only watching a story about time travel and adventure, but they were also transported back to the cultural moment when Grease dominated cinemas worldwide. Number 18. The Popular Feature. There is a detail about Flight of the Navigator that many casual viewers overlook, and it sits in its music. While Alan Silvestri's fully electronic score gave the film a futuristic tone, the soundtrack also included a track that carried a more emotional weight. The song was E.T. for Julie, performed by Karen Allen and John Carpenter. Its inclusion linked the movie to the wider world of 80s cinema in a way that felt both nostalgic and fitting. The choice of this song was not random. By the mid-1980s, audiences still carried strong memories of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which had moved millions only a few years earlier. That film had become a cultural touchstone, especially for younger viewers. Using E.T. for Julie tapped into that emotional memory, It connected the new adventure of David and Max with the earlier tale of a boy and an alien friend, creating a quiet bridge between two beloved science fiction stories. John Carpenter's involvement was also significant. Known mainly for his directing and haunting film scores, Carpenter brought a distinctive style that blended emotion with a sense of mystery. Partnered with Karen Allen, who added warmth through her voice, the song stood out as a piece that softened the more mechanical and electronic feel of Silvestri's music. The result was a soundtrack that balanced the precision of early digital synthesizers with a track that reminded audiences of friendship, longing, and the magic of connection. Flight of the Navigator was about speed, time, and technology, yet its music proved that even the fastest journeys through space still needed a human heart. Number 19. The Ship with a Secret Name. One of the most clever details hidden in Flight of the Navigator comes from the name of the ship itself. The sleek silver craft that carries David across galaxies is officially called the Trimaxion drone ship. At first glance, the name is a jumble of technical terms thrown together to sound futuristic. Yet, there is a secret built inside it that ties directly to the story's theme. When the letters are rearranged, the title becomes the phrase, "No time like the present." That small discovery reveals a playful but meaningful nod to the very heart of the movie, which is all about time, its passage, and the way it changes lives.
Who are you?
Who are you?
This hidden anagram works as more than just a puzzle for sharp viewers. It points directly to David's extraordinary experience. To him, only a few short hours have passed aboard the ship, yet on Earth, 8 years have slipped by. For his family, that time felt like forever. For David, it was almost nothing at all. The phrase, "no time like the present," captures the bittersweet truth that, no matter how much time one might lose or gain, the present moment is what matters most. Number 20. The Hidden Wig. Joey Kramer once revealed a secret about the making of Flight of the Navigator that most audiences never caught on to. After filming had wrapped, the editors decided certain scenes needed to be reshot. Joey had already bleached his hair while back home in British Columbia, which caused a continuity problem. To solve it, the studio placed a wig on him during the reshoot, especially for the time travel sequence at the end. Joey later admitted that the wig was obvious to him, yet he laughed that almost no one ever noticed until he pointed it out himself. Flight of the Navigator stands as a product of its time. From its unusual production journey to the lives it touched, the film remains a unique chapter in cinema history. Decades later, its legacy is still an inspiration to several generations of science fiction films. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more inspiring content like this. Before you go, kindly watch the other videos on your screen. Thanks for watching.